Hi everyone, Luke here from Weekend Tour Pros. We're back in the studio and we're back again filming another ball review for the benefit of the average swing speed golfer watching down the lens. Now, in my recent video where I tested the 4 most popular premium golf balls available on the market, lots of you in the comments section said to me, we don't need to be playing a premium ball as average mid-handicap golfers, we need to be playing something in the price point below. So what I've gone and done is got both of the Titleist golf balls in that price point, the Titleist Tour Speed and the Titleist Tour Soft, and today we're going to put them side by side to see if these are the best value mid-price point golf balls and just see how the two balls differentiate themselves from each other and see if one is the right one for you. Let's get stuck in. Okay, before we start the test, just want to tell you a little bit about these two golf balls and how they differentiate themselves from each other. The Tour Soft is a 2-piece ionomer cover golf ball. Its price point is $29.99 and it is an incredibly soft golf ball with a compression rating of 67. The Tour Speed, on the other hand, is a 3-piece urethane cover golf ball, exactly the same as the Titleist Pro V1 and the Pro V1X. It is a slightly firmer golf ball at 82 rated compression, however that is still below the average rating you would see of a tour golf ball, which is a little bit firmer. In terms of its price point, this one is a little bit dearer at $37.99 a dozen, and they are both made at the same Titleist golf ball plant, Titleist ball plant number 2, which is the same place that they make the Velocity and the True Feel, which are their more budget entry-level golf balls. In terms of how the performances of these two golf balls, Titleist, if you look on their website, put it side by side, they give you exactly the same characteristics for both of these. You're expecting some low long game spin, some mid short game spin, so not going to expect as much spin as say a Pro V1 in the short game, but we are expecting to see a little bit less spin in the long game. Okay, so done hitting the 20-25 yard pitch shots with the 60-degree wedge, and first impressions are I couldn't separate the balls too much actually on this part of the test based on the data I was seeing in front of me. The Tour Soft definitely felt like it launched a bit higher, definitely felt like I was hitting the ceiling with a couple of the shots, which was something I didn't get with the Tour Speed. Spin numbers seem to be a fraction higher with the Tour Speed on the better strikes, but again, really negligible. I'm sure the averages are going to come out really similar. But let's get home and take a look at that data. Okay, so let's take a look at the data from that 20 to 25 yard pitch shot. Now, starting on the left hand side, you can see that my club head speed with both of these balls was virtually identical. I did, however, get a slightly higher amount of ball speed out of the Tour Soft in this part of the test, and as a result a slightly higher smash factor. Now, the one caveat I'd give to that is when you're hitting kind of a fiddly shot at kind of a partial distance and not a full shot, I think I am the overriding variable as a handicap golfer here, and I do believe that both these golf balls would be virtually identical in terms of ball speeds and smash factors if I was to hit a much larger sample of shots at just this distance. In terms of the spin number, you heard me say in the bay that I did feel like I got some slightly higher spin on a couple of shots with the Tour Speed. When I did delve into the data and look at the individual line by line data, I could see that definitely was the case, but actually the root cause of it was I hit those shots a little bit harder and they went a little bit further than the 25 yards we were trying to keep this carry into, and as a result they did spin up a little bit more. I think if I was to hit shots a little bit harder with the Tour Soft, I would get a little bit more spin out of it as well. But looking at the averages here, what you can see is the average spin is virtually identical with both 100 revs more spin with the Tour Soft than the Tour Speed. But again, I think that's negligible, and I think that's me, the overriding variable as a handicap golfer. The one thing we can differentiate these two balls is in the ball flight, something I maybe didn't see in the bay, but when we look at the data we can see it really comes out. The ball flight with the Tour Speed was a little bit lower launching, a little bit lower peak height and a little bit lower land angle versus the Tour Soft that was higher in all three of those areas. Now, I'm not going to say that one of those ball flights is better than the other. I do sort of see a general theme that better players like to see the ball coming in lower with their chipping and pitching shots. They like to have that control and be able to stop it using spin, versus someone like myself who probably isn't the best at short game, and I maybe subconsciously am always trying to help the ball up in the air. So knowing that I've got a golf ball that pops off the face and does go up in the air like the Tour Soft might actually be more appealing to golfers like myself. So I think it's up to you to determine which of these two ball flights with the shorter shot you prefer, but I think both of them do differentiate themselves ever so slightly. Otherwise, they're very, very similar in terms of their performance. Let's move on to those pitching wedges. Okay, done hitting pitching wedges with the Tour Speed and the Tour Soft. Starting to get a bit of a sweat on here. I've been in the bay for an hour already, so starting to get a little bit warm. In terms of the differences between the two balls, I didn't notice too much difference when I was looking at the numbers in front of me shot by shot. Seemed to be really, really comparable. If anything, my gut feel is that the Tour Soft potentially was a little bit longer and a little bit more optimal ball flight for me, and actually a little bit faster than Tour Speed at a pitching wedge. So maybe that Tour Speed will take over and become a faster ball as we move up to the 7-iron and the driver. I did like the feel of the Tour Soft, but I wasn't offended by the Tour Speed either. Having hit other balls, which I'm also filming a review today, which includes a Pro V1, and definitely compared to that, it's not as clippy or as firm as the Pro V1, so definitely in the wheelhouse that I enjoy. But let's dive into that data in a little bit more detail. Okay, so let's take a look at those pitching wedge numbers now. Now, starting on the left-hand side, you can see that my club head speed with both of these balls was absolutely identical at 74.1 mile an hour. However, the Tour Speed, the name Tour Speed, you'd expect it to be faster. It was actually slower with the pitching wedge. 93.4 mile an hour of ball speed on average versus 95.2 with the Tour Soft. Interestingly, the spin number with the Tour Speed was 6287 versus 500 revs more spin with the Tour Soft at 6795. The spin number doesn't surprise me as much as the ball speed does, because normally with speed balls, they normally are slightly lower spinning, so that bit didn't surprise me. However, I was expecting the Tour Speed to be a longer ball, and we can see here at 120.9 yards versus 122.7 with the Tour Soft. The Tour Soft also was 1.8 yards longer at this part of the test versus the Tour Speed. In terms of the ball flights, I actually said in the bay that I thought that the Tour Soft offered a potentially more preferential ball flight for me. Actually, when you look at the data, I got that one wrong. The ball flights are virtually identical. You can see the launch angles are 0.4 of a degree in it. The peak heights, there's only 2 feet in it. And the land angle, there's only 0.7 degrees in it. Now, if you'd asked me which of those two data sets I would prefer, I would take the Tour Soft, but we're talking about really negligible numbers that you'd struggle to notice a difference out on the golf course there. And therefore, I think in terms of their ball flight characteristics with a pitching wedge, we can safely say they're virtually identical. The differentiator here, though, is the Tour Soft was faster, it was longer, and it span a little bit more in the pitching wedge. Let's see if that trend continues as we move up to the 7-iron. Okay, done hitting the batch of shots with the 7-iron with the Tour Soft versus the Tour Speed. Initial thoughts while I was in the bay, the Tour Soft actually did feel faster again. I'm pretty sure I was getting some slightly higher ball speed numbers, maybe 110s, 111s at times. I did struggle to get that with the Tour Speed. I think I maybe got 1 or 2, but really had to step on it and get an absolute pure strike to get that. Did feel like the Tour Soft and the Tour Speed were a little bit low spinning compared to, say, a Pro V1, but definitely felt like the ball flights with them was quite comparable. So again, really not seeing a lot between these two balls in the bay. That's why we need to go home and look at the aggregated data. Okay, so let's take a look at those 7-iron numbers. Now, first of all, you can see on the left-hand side that my club head speed with both these balls virtually identical once again, only 0.2 mile an hour difference across the aggregated sets of shots. However, the Tour Soft is a fractionally faster ball once again, so that Tour Speed isn't living up to its name. You heard me say in the bay that I felt like I got a couple of 110, 111 mile an hour ball speeds with the Tour Soft. When I went back and checked the data, that was absolutely valid, that was correct. I didn't get anything that fast with the Tour Speed. So we can safely say in my hands with a 7-iron, the Tour Soft is faster than the Tour Speed. So it's yet to live up to that name as a fast golf ball. In terms of the spin rate, you can see that once again the Tour Soft is a slightly spinnier golf ball, this time by about 400 revs at 4101 versus 3678. Now interestingly, we saw about 500 revs of difference with the pitching wedge. As we're moving up the bag, we're seeing that become a slightly smaller number of 400 revs, so it'll be really interesting to see if that does close a gap even further as we move up to driver. In terms of carry numbers, we can see that also in my hands the Tour Soft was a slightly longer golf ball with a 7-iron. Again, this is negligible, 0.8 yards on average difference between the two golf balls. And if we move across to the ball flights, we can see that they're virtually identical as well. The launch angle actually is almost identical, 17.2 versus 17.3. However, we can see there is a slight bit of additional peak height with the Tour Soft and a little bit more of a steeper land angle, a couple of degrees in that and about 4 feet of peak height. If you were to ask me, I would take the Tour Soft ball flight over the Tour Speed purely because that extra spin plus that extra height plus that steepness of land angle means that all things being equal, I'm going to get slightly more control with a 7-iron with the Tour Soft based on this set of data. Now I'm really intrigued to see what happens when we get up to the driver to see if that Tour Speed finally lives up to its name and takes over as a faster golf ball. So let's head on over to the drivers. Okay, done hitting the Tour Soft and the Tour Speed with the driver there. First impressions again, I'm really struggling to separate these balls in the bay. Maybe because again of my strike, I'm starting to not see consistent patterns or differentiation between the two balls. I don't think the Tour Speed was faster, but I did seem to feel like I got some really good carry numbers out of it. So it might well be that that's where it's come into its own off of the driver. But again, we need to get home and look at the data side by side to see how it compares. Okay, let's finish up by looking at that driver data then. So first of all, on the left-hand side, you can see that my club head speed with the Tour Speed was actually a little bit faster this time, 0.5 mile an hour difference on average. But we can see that once again, the ball speed of the Tour Speed is it's slower. It's 133.2 versus 132.4 with the Tour Soft. So the Tour Soft, I was actually swinging it a little bit slower and getting a little bit more ball speed out of it. So once again, the Tour Speed has not lived up to its name on any part of the test at any club in the bag. In terms of drivers, we always talk about high launch, low spin. What we can see with these two sets of numbers, they're virtually identical. The spin rates, there's only 7 revs of spin between these two golf balls, which considering I hit about 30 drives in total across them, is absolutely mind-blowing just how close they are. Versus the launch angle, you could say is slightly in favour of the Tour Speed at 14.6 versus 14.3. But like I've said at earlier parts of the test, these two balls are flying on very, very similar ball flights. And therefore, I think you can have some confidence just how consistent they both are. In terms of the carry number, I did say in the bay that I felt like I carried the ball a little bit further with the Tour Speed, and that was because I did hit quite a few shots that were around about the 210, 211, 212 mark. Actually, when I looked at the data, the two longest carries were both with the Tour Soft. One was about 218 yards and one was about 217 yards. The longest drive that I had with the Tour Speed was 214 yards of carry, so 4 yards shorter than the longest I was able to get out with the Tour Soft. If we look at total distance with driver, I did hit my longest total distance with the Tour Speed at 245.8 yards, and that was 0.6 yards longer than the longest I had with the Tour Soft, which was 245.2. So if you're looking at total distance, then you can say that the Tour Speed is a slightly longer ball in terms of one-off strikes, but you can see from the aggregated data here that over a whole batch of shots, the Tour Soft was longer in terms of both carry and total distance on average. So I just want to give you my concluding thoughts on the Titleist Tour Soft and the Titleist Tour Speed golf balls. First things first, let's address the elephant in the room. The Tour Speed didn't live up to its name. Now I am a little bit disappointed in Titleist there because they market the Tour Soft and the Tour Speed as comparable golf balls and they expect people to pick one or the other. Now if you're someone who's looking for more distance or faster, I think you would pick the Tour Speed up off the shelf based on its name and that would be the golf ball you play. However, you could see in this test, in my hands, the Tour Soft was a slightly faster golf ball at all aspects of the test. Now putting that to one side and looking at these two golf balls objectively and taking the name out of the equation, we can say they are both fantastic golf balls. What we can say that Titleist have done a brilliant job is making some aspects of these golf balls absolutely identical to each other. Whilst we could say that the Tour Soft was a little bit faster, it was really negligible, so we can say that speeds are virtually the same with these two golf balls. We can also say that the carry numbers were virtually the same with these two golf balls. Yes, the Tour Soft was a little bit longer for me, but again, it was really negligible and you wouldn't notice that out on the golf course. And finally, we can say that the ball flight profiles of both of these golf balls is virtually identical with all 4 shots in this test. The only differentiator being in that short shot where the Tour Soft popped up a little bit more and that Tour Speed had a bit more of a kind of a tour player preferred launch versus the Tour Soft. The two areas where these balls then differentiate themselves from each other is in terms of the spin profile. The Tour Soft offered a little bit more spin in the irons and the wedges, and at the driver those two numbers actually did come closer together, so we were seeing kind of a taper in the spin rates between the Tour Soft and the Tour Speed as we moved up through the bag. And then the other differentiating factor is in the feel. The Tour Soft definitely does feel like a soft golf ball, and if you're someone who likes a soft golf ball, I think you'll really enjoy the Tour Soft. In terms of the Tour Speed, although it is firmer, it's not too firm, so again, if you're someone who wants the benefits of playing a slightly firmer golf ball but doesn't want it to be too firm, I think the Tour Speed will really appeal to you as well. So we can say that Titleist have done a really great job there in terms of making the balls really similar but then marginally different to appeal to two different types of golfers. The final thing to call out is the price point difference, $29.99 for the Tour Soft in the UK versus $37.99 for the Tour Speed in the UK, £8 a dozen difference. Now that leads me on to which of these two golf balls would I play. I think it's probably a no-brainer if you've been watching the video that I would prefer the Tour Soft. For me, it's £8 a dozen cheaper. I definitely need a bit more spin off of my irons and my wedges without getting additional spin on my driver. Definitely benefit therefore from the spin profile of the Tour Soft. And in that short game, I am someone who's notoriously kind of always trying to get the ball to pop up a little bit more in the air and not help it up in the air. So having that kind of confidence that the ball will pop up is also something that appeals to me on the Tour Soft. And I do prefer a softer feeling golf ball, so again, that's another win for the Tour Soft. But I think there'll be guys watching down the lens that the Tour Speed will also appeal to just as much as well. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you like the content, then please do consider giving it a thumbs up. It really does help other like-minded golfers to find my videos on YouTube. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, then please do consider hitting that subscribe button and following the Weekend Tour Pros movement. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Keep on that quest to become a Weekend Tour Pro. Goodbye.